Most gardeners are told there is only one path to rich soil: build a compost pile, turn it often, balance greens and browns, and wait. Weeks turn into months, and months into frustration. You follow every step, yet the results rarely match the promise. The pile heats, shrinks, and eventually becomes compost, but something feels off. The process demands effort, attention, and time. Now here's the turning point. What if the problem isn't how you compost, but the fact that you're composting at all? What if the healthiest, darkest, most fertile soil isn't built in a pile somewhere off to the side, but directly where plants grow? The moment you stop treating soil as a final destination and start treating it as a living system to be fed continuously, everything changes. Growth becomes steadier, moisture lasts longer, soil begins to transform on its own. This is not theory. It's a return to how land has functioned for centuries without human interference. Before we go deeper, take a second to like the video, share it with someone still turning compost every weekend, drop a comment with your experience, and subscribe to Nature's Flora for more practical, no-effort methods that actually work. Why compost piles fall short of what soil truly needs. Composting seems logical on the surface. You gather organic waste, let it break down, and return it to the soil. But during that process, a significant portion of nutrients escapes as heat and gas. The pile works intensely, but the soil only receives what's left behind. This creates a disconnect. Instead of feeding the soil ecosystem directly, you're pre-processing nutrients and losing biological energy along the way. Soil organisms thrive on fresh material, not leftovers. When everything is broken down beforehand, much of that living energy is already spent. Nature doesn't build compost piles. In forests, fields, and untouched landscapes, organic matter falls and stays exactly where it lands. Leaves, stems, and debris form layers on the surface. Over time, worms, fungi, and microbes pull this material into the soil gradually. Nothing is turned. Nothing is relocated. There is no rush. This slow, steady breakdown preserves nutrients and fuels continuous biological activity. The soil becomes richer from the top down. This is the system modern gardening often overlooks, even though it has sustained ecosystems for generations. What surface feeding actually is and why it works. Surface feeding, often called no-dig or sheet feeding, replaces compost piles entirely. Instead of breaking materials down elsewhere, you place them directly on the soil. Layers of organic matter act as both protection and food. Microbes begin feeding immediately. Fungi stretch through the layers, breaking down tougher materials like straw and wood fibers. Worms follow the moisture and organic matter, dragging nutrients deeper into the soil. This creates a living cycle that never stops. So, the key difference here is timing. You see, compost tends to delay nutrient availability, while surface feeding delivers it continuously. That means plants receive a steady supply instead of just occasional bursts. This in turn leads to stronger, more resilient growth because the soil ecosystem is always active, not just waiting around for the next application. Alright, so here's how to build a living soil system, step by step. First, start directly on the soil surface. Lay down plain cardboard, making sure to overlap the edges so no light reaches the ground. This simple step suppresses weeds while holding in moisture. Next, wet the cardboard thoroughly so it settles in and starts to soften up. On top of that, add a layer of green material. Kitchen scraps, fresh weeds, or plant trimmings all work perfectly. These provide immediate food for bacteria and worms. Then, just cover everything with a layer of dry material, like straw, dry leaves, or wood chips. This top layer helps regulate temperature, locks in moisture, and feeds fungi over time. Give it a light watering to activate the whole system, and honestly, that's all it takes. There's no turning, no mixing, and no waiting period before you can start planting. The soil begins improving immediately as organisms respond to those fresh inputs. Now, let's talk about the role of worms, fungi, and microbes in soil transformation. Worms are naturally drawn to moisture and food, and as they move through the soil, they leave behind castings that are rich in nutrients and beneficial microbes. Fungi, on the other hand, form networks that transport nutrients across the soil, connecting roots to resources beyond their immediate reach. bacteria break down softer materials quickly, releasing nutrients in forms that plants can absorb. Together, these organisms create a self-sustaining system, and when soil is left undisturbed, their networks expand instead of being destroyed by digging or turning. So, why does this method reduce watering and boost resilience? Well, a covered soil surface actually behaves quite a bit differently than bare ground. Mulch, for example, really cuts down on evaporation, which means moisture moves slowly downward instead of just disappearing into the air. This helps keep the soil consistently damp, but not waterlogged. Plants end up experiencing less stress since water and nutrients stick around for longer periods. And over time, the soil structure itself improves. It gets darker and more crumbly, it holds water better, drains more effectively, and even supports deeper root growth. Weed control without constant effort, that's really the goal here. Cardboard blocks sunlight, preventing weed seeds from germinating. The mulch layer adds another barrier, making it even harder for unwanted plants to take hold. Over time, the weed seed bank weakens because fewer seeds are able to sprout. So, instead of fighting weeds repeatedly, you gradually eliminate the conditions they rely on. This saves time and reduces the need for constant maintenance. Long-term soil building that never stops. Yeah, that's the real beauty of this approach. Unlike compost, which is applied and then used up, surface feeding is ongoing. Each layer adds to the previous one. As plants grow, their roots feed soil organisms, and when they die back, those roots become organic matter underground. Soil improves from both above and below. The process never resets, it just keeps building, season after season, creating a richer environment with less effort. If you've been putting in hours turning compost and still feel like your soil isn't where it should be, this shift changes everything. Stop feeding the pile and start feeding the soil directly. Let nature handle the rest. If this guide gave you a new way to think about building healthy soil, subscribe to Nature's Flora, share this with someone who needs to hear it, and keep learning how to grow more by doing less.